The alien fleet descended on Earth with the arrogance of a predator toying with prey. Their massive ships darkened the sky, casting long shadows over the small towns of Colorado. From their war machines, troops emerged, armed with glowing plasma rifles and enveloped in shimmering energy shields. The Galactic Dominion had claimed dozens of worlds, and Earth was to be no exception. To them, humanity was nothing more than a curious, primitive species with outdated tools and an inflated sense of importance. High above the chaos, General Vaytrax stood on the command deck of his flagship. He sneered at the reports flooding in. Bullets? They still use solid projectiles? His voice dripped with derision as he turned to his officers. This will be easier than I imagined. Humans are centuries behind. On the ground, resistance was futile. Military bases were obliterated within hours. Fighter jets were swatted from the sky by swarms of drones. Civilians fled in terror as the aliens advanced, leveling entire neighborhoods without a hint of remorse. The air reeked of ozone and charred rubble. Earth's once proud armies, accustomed to battles of strategy and endurance, found themselves powerless against an enemy that rendered their weapons useless. Far from the invasion's epicenter, a man sat in a small, isolated cabin, listening to the distant rumble of destruction. Luke Barrett, a former Marine sniper, adjusted the dial on his weathered shortwave radio, picking up frantic transmissions. The static-laden voices described the aliens' relentless assault and humanity's helplessness. Barrett's jaw tightened. He had spent years away from the battlefield, retreating to the solitude of the mountains after losing his wife to cancer. The world had moved on without him, or so he thought. He stepped outside, the brisk mountain air biting against his skin. From his vantage point, he could see faint plumes of smoke rising on the horizon. Memories of combat surged back unbidden. He remembered the precision of his shots, the discipline of his training, and the quiet confidence that came from knowing his craft. Barrett wasn't one for grand speeches or heroics. But as he stared at the horizon, something shifted within him. They might be invincible to armies, but maybe not to him. Inside his cabin, Barrett opened a long-forgotten trunk. Dusty, yet meticulously organized, it contained his tools of war. He pulled out his custom-built .50 BMG sniper rifle, its cold metal gleaming faintly in the dim light. Next came the ammunition, hand-loaded rounds designed for maximum accuracy and penetration. He checked the rifle's scope, adjusted the settings, and ran a hand over its smooth barrel. This weapon had served him well in countless missions, and it would serve him again. As the evening sun dipped below the mountains, Barrett scanned the landscape with his binoculars. Alien patrols moved methodically through the valley, their strange, insect-like formations both alien and unnervingly efficient. Their shields shimmered faintly, a visual reminder of the technological gulf between them and humanity. Barrett smirked. Technology had its limits. He had spent his life learning to exploit them. A single alien transport moved into view, its glowing engines humming softly. Barrett steadied his rifle on a makeshift bipod and exhaled slowly. His heartbeat slowed, his world narrowing to the view through his scope. The transport's lead soldier stood tall, exuding confidence. Barrett's finger brushed the trigger, and with a deafening crack, the shot rang out. The .50 caliber round tore through the air, striking the alien square in the chest. Its shield flickered violently before collapsing, and the soldier crumpled to the ground. Barrett watched the scene unfold below. The remaining soldiers scrambled in confusion, scanning the horizon for the source of the attack. Their arrogance had left them unprepared for an enemy they couldn't see. Barrett didn't wait for their response. He shifted his aim, lined up his next shot, and fired. Another shield flickered, another soldier fell. He packed his rifle swiftly and retreated further into the mountains. This was a war of patience, of precision. He wasn't here to fight their way. He was here to show them that humanity's simplicity was its strength. The aliens might have laughed at bullets, but they wouldn't be laughing for long. The aftermath of Barrett's first strike rippled through the alien ranks like a thunderclap. For the first time, their shields, considered impenetrable, had failed against a human weapon. The Galactic Dominion's arrogance was momentarily replaced with confusion. The aliens tightened their formations, but their initial confidence began to crack. Barrett, however, wasn't content with sowing fear. He intended to teach them a lesson they would never forget. The resistance, scattered and disorganized, operated in the shadows, trying desperately to stay alive. Barrett found a small group of fighters holed up in an abandoned mining facility, their faces a mixture of desperation and disbelief. They had seen his handiwork from a distance, the impossible precision of his shots, the uncanny ability to strike without being seen. To them, he was a myth made real. But Barrett wasn't there to inspire awe, he was there to make them useful. With an air of quiet authority, Barrett laid out his findings. The shields, he explained, were tuned to deflect high-energy projectiles, plasma, lasers, and other advanced weaponry. Kinetic rounds, solid projectiles traveling at extreme velocities, overwhelmed the shield's response time, slipping through the defenses. His custom sniper rifle was effective because it delivered power without relying on the advanced technology the aliens had prepared to counter. The resistance fighters listened intently, their hopelessness slowly giving way to determination. Barrett spent the next few days training them. They weren't soldiers, not in the way he had been, but they had the will to fight, and Barrett would give them the means. He taught them how to modify their hunting rifles for greater range and accuracy, how to move undetected in the wilderness, and how to exploit the alien patrol's predictable patterns. His instructions were methodical, every detail grounded in experience. This wasn't just survival. This was preparation for a fight that would turn the tide. One evening, as the resistance prepared for their first coordinated attack, Barrett took position on a ridge overlooking an alien encampment. Through his scope, he studied their layout, the glowing shield generators, the clustered troops, the towering command structure in the center. The aliens moved with mechanical precision, their arrogance still evident in their lack of perimeter defenses. Barrett smirked. They still didn't understand what they were up against. As the signal was given, the resistance struck. Barrett's first shot echoed like thunder, the .50 BMG round punching through the shield of an alien officer and tearing through its armor. Chaos erupted in the camp. Soldiers scrambled to activate defenses, but the resistance fighters moved quickly and with purpose, targeting shield generators and key equipment. Barrett provided cover, each shot precise and devastating. With every kill, the aliens' panic grew. They weren't fighting an inferior species, they were fighting ghosts. The battle lasted minutes, but its impact was profound. The resistance retreated into the mountains, leaving behind destruction and confusion. For the first time, the Galactic Dominion had been dealt a coordinated blow on Earth. Barrett watched through his scope as alien reinforcements arrived, their commanders shouting orders in a language he couldn't understand. He didn't need to. Their frantic movements said everything. The humans had done what no other species had dared. They had struck back and lived. The days that followed saw a shift in the war's tone. Barrett's reputation grew, whispered among resistance cells and alien troops alike. They called him the Phantom, a name born from the aliens' inability to locate or counter him. Reports of his exploits reached alien command, shield generators destroyed, supply lines severed, high-ranking officers eliminated with impossible precision. Barrett moved constantly, never staying in one place for long. He knew the aliens would adapt, but he also knew their weakness. They relied on technology. He relied on instinct. Barrett's most notable strike came during an alien convoy's march through a narrow valley. The convoy carried supplies crucial to their ground forces, a fact Barrett had learned from intercepted transmissions. He positioned himself high above the valley floor, calculating wind, distance, and the convoy's speed with practiced ease. As the first transport appeared in his scope, Barrett exhaled and fired. The round struck the lead vehicle's engine block, sending it careening into the rocky walls. The convoy halted, and Barrett began his systematic assault. One by one, he disabled vehicles and eliminated soldiers attempting to regroup. His shots were deliberate, each one a lesson in discipline and control. By the time alien reinforcements arrived, the valley was a graveyard of smoldering wreckage and fallen troops. Barrett had vanished, leaving nothing but the echoes of his rifle. As the resistance celebrated their growing successes, Barrett remained grounded. He knew the Dominion's next move wouldn't be another wave of standard troops. They would come for him directly, and when they did, he would be ready. The Galactic Dominion, humiliated by the mounting defeats, shifted its focus. Barrett's name was now spoken in hushed tones even among alien command. The humans' newfound confidence stemmed from this one man, a sniper who defied logic with his primitive weapon. The Dominion's leaders issued a directive: eliminate the Phantom at any cost. They dispatched their most elite hunters, soldiers bred and augmented specifically for tracking and killing high-value targets. The hunters were unlike anything humanity had faced. Cloaked in adaptive camouflage and equipped with advanced sensory arrays, they moved silently, blending seamlessly into the terrain. They weren't sent to fight humans en masse but to find and destroy Barrett. The aliens believed their advanced technology would grant them the edge. But they had underestimated their quarry once again. Barrett, ever watchful, had anticipated their move. From his perch high in the mountains, he noticed subtle signs, faint disturbances in the foliage, unnatural patterns in the wildlife's behavior, and the eerie silence that often preceded an ambush. He understood the hunters were close. His training and experience told him one thing: this would not be a contest of technology but one of patience, skill, and awareness. As the hunters closed in, Barrett used the terrain to his advantage. He moved with the precision of a ghost, masking his tracks, creating false trails, and using the natural environment to shield himself. The hunters' technology allowed them to detect heat signatures and faint vibrations, but Barrett's knowledge of the mountains allowed him to evade their pursuit. He climbed higher, forcing the hunters into thinner air, where their equipment began to falter. The first confrontation came without warning. One of the hunters, believing it had finally cornered Barrett, raised its weapon, a sleek plasma rifle capable of cutting through solid rock. But Barrett had already anticipated its position. Hidden beneath a rock outcropping, he waited for the perfect moment. When the alien paused to scan the area, Barrett fired. The bullet pierced the hunter's cloaking field and armor, dropping it instantly. The other hunters, realizing their prey was far more dangerous than expected, regrouped. The following days became a deadly game of cat and mouse. Barrett dismantled the hunters one by one, exploiting their reliance on technology. He lured them into narrow passages where their numbers and advanced weapons became liabilities. He used their equipment against them, triggering their sensory arrays to misdirect them into dangerous terrain. Each encounter was a lesson in adaptability, a demonstration of humanity's greatest strength, the ability to improvise under pressure. Despite his successes, Barrett knew the Dominion wouldn't stop with just a few elite hunters. Their persistence meant they were becoming desperate, and desperation often led to recklessness. This realization fueled his next move. He needed to strike not just at the soldiers but at the very core of the Dominion's command on Earth. Barrett set his sights on the Alien Command Center, a mobile fortress housing the Dominion's tactical hub and shield generators. The plan was audacious, almost suicidal, but Barrett understood the stakes. The fortress was heavily guarded, surrounded by patrols, automated defenses, and shielded by the very technology that had initially rendered humanity's weapons useless. Yet Barrett saw an opportunity. The Dominion's reliance on predictable patterns meant there were gaps in their defenses, brief windows of vulnerability that could be exploited by someone with enough skill and nerve. Under the cover of darkness, Barrett infiltrated the perimeter. Using knowledge gained from scavenged alien equipment, he disabled key surveillance nodes, creating a blind spot in their detection grid. He positioned himself on a ridge overlooking the fortress, calculating the wind, distance, and rotation of the shield generators. Every second mattered, every movement had to be precise. When the moment came, Barrett's first shot shattered the fortress's outer shield. The explosion triggered chaos among the alien troops, who scrambled to locate the source of the attack. Before they could react, Barrett fired again, disabling a secondary shield generator. The aliens, blinded by their own confusion, failed to realize the true brilliance of Barrett's strategy. By dismantling their defenses systematically, he forced them into disarray, exposing their vulnerabilities to an increasingly emboldened resistance. As the resistance launched their assault, Barrett continued his methodical strikes. His shots silenced alien officers, disrupted their communications, and prevented reinforcements from organizing. The fortress, once an impenetrable symbol of Dominion supremacy, crumbled under the combined weight of human ingenuity and Barrett's unyielding precision. By the end of the night, the fortress lay in ruins. The resistance had claimed their most significant victory yet, and Barrett had once again proven that no amount of technology could substitute for the power of human skill and determination. But he knew this was only the beginning. The Dominion wouldn't retreat without retaliation, and their next move would be even more dangerous. Barrett steeled himself, knowing the fight was far from over. The Galactic Dominion had reached its breaking point. The destruction of their command center and the relentless blows to their forces had humiliated them on a galactic stage. The name, Phantom, had become a whispered curse among their ranks, a symbol of humanity's defiance. Desperation bred escalation, and the Dominion decided to deploy their most feared asset, a warlord known as General Vaytrac. Ruthless, cunning, and armed with the most advanced technology in their arsenal, Vaytrac was not merely a soldier but a living weapon. Vaytrac's arrival on Earth was marked by a grim silence. Unlike the arrogance displayed by his predecessors, Vaytrac approached his mission with cold precision. He reviewed every report on Barrett, every tactical failure, and every point of vulnerability. Barrett's reputation intrigued him, but he saw it as a challenge, not a threat. His confidence lay in his newly developed adaptive armor, impervious to kinetic and energy-based weapons, and a cloaking device that rendered him nearly invisible. He was not here to fight humanity. He was here to end Barrett. Barrett, however, had already anticipated this escalation. The Dominion's pattern of retaliation was predictable, and he knew they would send someone like Vaytrac. For days, he monitored the movements of alien forces, observing their heightened activity and the increased presence of reconnaissance drones. Vaytrac's arrival was a calculated move, and Barrett understood this confrontation would be unlike any other. He began preparing, not with brute force but with strategy. The key to defeating Vaytrac lay in exploiting the very thing the Dominion relied on, their dependence on technology. Barrett began gathering materials to construct an improvised EMP device. It was crude but effective, designed to overload the circuits of even the most advanced systems. He positioned the device in a narrow canyon, a place where Vaytrac's technological superiority would be minimized, and his movements constrained. Vaytrac, guided by his cloaking device and enhanced sensors, moved through the terrain with the precision of a predator. He followed Barrett's faint trail, believing he had the upper hand. His arrogance was tempered by caution, but he underestimated Barrett's ability to think 3 steps ahead. As Vaytrac entered the canyon, Barrett triggered the EMP. The device released a pulse that disrupted Vaytrac's cloaking field and temporarily disabled his armor. For the first time, Vaytrac was vulnerable. The confrontation that followed was a battle of skill versus power. Vaytrac, though exposed, was still a formidable opponent. His reflexes were enhanced, his strength unmatched, and his weaponry lethal. Barrett relied on his environment, using the rocks and shadows to outmaneuver the alien general. Every shot he fired was calculated, aimed at exploiting the weaknesses revealed by the EMP. Vaytrac, despite his training and enhancements, struggled against a foe who refused to fight on his terms. The turning point came when Barrett spotted a flaw in Vaytrac's armor, an exposed segment near his helmet's visor. It was a small target, nearly impossible to hit under normal circumstances, but Barrett's precision was anything but normal. He steadied himself, exhaled slowly, and fired. The bullet found its mark, shattering the visor and piercing Vaytrac's skull. The general fell, his lifeless body a testament to the price of underestimating humanity. The death of Vaytrac sent shockwaves through the Dominion's forces. Their greatest warrior, equipped with their most advanced technology, had been defeated by a man with a rifle. Panic spread among their ranks, and the cohesion of their operations began to crumble. The resistance, emboldened by Barrett's victory, launched coordinated attacks across the region, driving the Dominion into retreat. As the last of the alien ships lifted off, leaving Earth behind, Barrett stood on the ridge overlooking the battlefield. His rifle rested against his shoulder, the weight of his actions sinking in. He hadn't fought for glory or recognition, he had fought because it was necessary. The world would remember him as a hero, but Barrett saw himself as a soldier doing his duty. The Dominion's retreat marked the end of their invasion, but Barrett knew the galaxy had taken notice. Earth was no longer a backwater planet to be conquered at will. It was a place of resilience, ingenuity, and strength. And while Barrett would return to his solitude in the mountains, the legend of the Phantom would endure, a reminder that sometimes the simplest tools in the hands of the right person could change the course of history.